Hey everyone, Pastor Jeremiah here. I want to tell you a little bit about these videos that we have available for you. We are approaching our annual meeting on the 31st of January, and these informational videos are meant to help you learn a little bit about what it is that we're going to be having conversation about on that day. So please just take a few minutes and familiarize yourselves with the things that are going to be talked about. And then if you have any questions or you're wondering about anything or you'd like to share an opinion about something, here are some informational contact information numbers for you to reach out to your council members or other folks. Let us know what you're thinking about these things. Make sure that if you have questions, we can address them prior to the meeting. We want to make sure that you are informed and part of this conversation together. On the 31st, we are going to be having our usual drive-in worship at 1 o'clock with communion, as it's the last Sunday of the month, and then directly following that service, the annual meeting will begin. We do need a quorum of 75 people to make sure that it's an official annual meeting, so you can come ahead of time for the worship service, stick around for the meeting, or just come after the worship service and be a part of the meeting too. We definitely look forward to seeing you through your car windshields as we gather together to talk about the direction that we as Calvary are going. Hope to see you there on the 31st.
"2020 was a year of change. We started the year guided by God as we used the hymn of faith, Be Thou My Vision, to lead us. Then COVID-19 came and disrupted all of life, and keeping our eyes focused on Jesus was a much larger challenge than anyone could have expected. What we weren't able to do in 2020 was complete the high school and middle school mission trips or offer in-person worship and gatherings. We didn't complete an updated Calvary Lutheran members photo directory. We weren't able to hold the respectful conversations as we'd planned with the Minnesota Council of Churches. We also weren't able to hold community faith and life seminars. And finally, we were unable to hold our Christmas Eve outdoor worship services with other area Lutheran congregations due to the wind chill. But what we did do in 2020 was complete a multi-generational mission trip to Jamaica. We pivoted quickly in response to COVID-19 limitations by moving to online worship gatherings, partnerships with local churches for outdoor worship experiences, parking lot communion, hybrid confirmation instruction, preschool graduation, and milestones like First Communion, confirmation, and baptisms. We organized a telecare phone tree to stay in touch with our congregational family. We used social media outlets to keep in touch with Calvary worshipers. We kept Calvary childcare safely open and running. We were able to complete a major building repair on the south-facing wall of our new addition and our roof, and paid for both through your faithful offerings. We developed a maintenance tracking system for the building. We said goodbye to staff members Polly Merhar, Amanda Renbarger, Pastor Nate Bendorf, and Jack McNamara. We welcomed Calvary's own pastor, Emily Papke Larson, as campus pastor at BSU and NTC. We put in place new safety policies and protocols at Calvary in response to COVID-19, and we replenished Calvary's reserve fund through the Shine Your Light appeal. Thanks be to God.
All right, everybody, we're going to dive in, and we're going to go head first, and we're going to deal with the minutes. So we had one annual meeting last year, which was held on January 26th, 2020. Minutes are posted on the website if you'd like to go through them. The highlights were that we introduced our 2020 theme, Be Thou My Vision, having no idea what was coming, and talked a little bit about the financials as well. So if you could take a second to review those, we will take
Hi, my name is Steve Palmer. I'm the treasurer for the Calvary Council, and I'm want to talk to you today about some of the financial, the financial reports for the previous year in 2020. Obviously, 2020 was a very challenging year for the congregation, for Calvary in general. We started out the year with our original approved budget that was passed in January of last year. And with the onset of the pandemic, we quickly had to come together and come up with an emergency budget to reflect the new realities of the congregation not being able to gather in person and having to go to other forms of having our services. Obviously, it was challenging also as well as far as our income that we are generating for the remainder of the year. So what we had to do is come up with a COVID-related budget that we revised from the months of August through the end of the year in December. And I wanted to present some of the highlights of how we met the challenges with this new budget and where we ended up at the end of the year. Obviously, general offerings changed significantly with the COVID and the pandemic and not gathering together. Our program and building use income were drastically reduced. Our preschool numbers were lower than budgeted. However, we were blessed to apply and receive several grants which definitely helped our financial situation, including the Nielsen grant for our building repairs of $20,000, the Northwest Minnesota Foundation grant of $3,000. We applied and received $149,000 from the payroll protection program that the U.S. government put into place in April. And the Minnesota Child Care Grant helped us with our preschool program, which totaled $40,000. We also did have 2 loans that we took out totaling $34,000 and a $10,000 loan from First National Bank and $24,000 through the SBA, which totaled the $34,000. These will be monthly payments I will be making in 2021. One additional income source that we received during the year was from the pipeline, who proposed a $7,800 payment to the church to not have to dig out the existing pipes in the property, and they will still be maintaining those pipes, and we benefited from the additional income. Obviously, your generous offerings for the building repairs and an increased ask through the service group letters, and many of you gifting part or all of your government stimulus checks also really helped us through the rest of the year. And finally, the Shine Your Light appeal allowed us to pay back the $15,000 that we had to use of our reserves this year. At year end, we again have $100,000 in our reserve fund from both in our money market account and invested in the mission investment fund. So those are some of the highlights of our income that we took in for the budget. Moving on to expenses. Obviously, the building repairs were a key item that we had to deal with during 2020. However, we raised over $59,000, which paid for the following repairs. So in the revised budget in 2020, we also had to make the difficult decision not to replace some of the staff positions. Our administrative assistant, our day custodian, and obviously our third pastor for the remainder of the year. We also did not recruit interns in either area of business or music. Our LSS partnership offering a person to vacuum the church was also not replaced. And lastly, the Calvary Live Meal Coordinator position is also on pause. For good news, the LED lighting has reduced our overall costs for electricity. In the first year, we are already seeing the fruits of that project, and we also cut extra benefits to staff, including cell phone reimbursements, miles and meal reimbursements, and continuing education support funds. We also benefited by paying interest only on our mortgage for 6 months of the year as we watched and waited to see how long this pandemic would suspend our ability to gather. As of the end of the year, some of our balances that we take a good look at were the cash in our checking account, which we have nearly $57,000, and our money market account of $257,000 in the account right now. We also have $55,000 in our MIF reserve fund.
Hello, church. Today I get to speak a little bit about what's coming up in 2021 with my sabbatical. Reflect well, be well, explore well, leads to leading well. In 2021, I will embark on a new experience, being sent off by all of you for some intentional time of Sabbath. Each month in our Calvary newsletter, there will be an article coming along the journey with me that I ask you to read and be a part of. The theme of my sabbatical is leading well in a long-term pastorate. After 20 years of ordained ministry, each year here serving you, the people of Calvary Lutheran Church, my plan unfolds for me personally as well as our congregation to reflect on the last 20 years, to be well in this present moment, and to explore new ways of learning and living God's mission for our lives. These 3 steps I will do individually by myself over the 12 weeks where I will step aside from my responsibilities here at Calvary and in Bemidji and go explore some different land, both individually and with my family, as well as reflect on my 20 years of ministry here and also try to form some healthy habits so that I can be well as too. For the congregation, though, I'd like you to be a part of this journey with me. I'm assembling 3 teams around my sabbatical. The Reflect team will be led by Melissa Rickers and Nancy Schramm. They will serve from February through August, helping us collect memories, stories, pictures, memorabilia from the last 20 years of ministry together at Calvary Lutheran Church. We will celebrate goals accomplished and memories spent together. So you're invited to find your pictures, share a story, share a memory of our time spent together in the last 20 years, and submit that through the email sabbatical@calvarybemidji.org. The B team will be led by Amanda Renbarger and Joan Mellebrook. This team will serve from June through September, planning a 20th anniversary bash here, hopefully at the church. If nothing else, at least to have an open house where we can come and spend some time together in small groups, if that is what it will be the safest at that time. We will celebrate at that anniversary celebration what we will do and how we will be healthy and well and whole to glorify God in God's kingdom. Finally, the Explore team will be led by Nicole Bieberdorf. They will serve from September through December to do some strategic planning with a consultant who will hire to come and walk beside us, helping identify what God is calling Calvary to do and be and become in the next 2 to 10 years. I hope that during this process that we will be a time of 2021 to be back together, sharing these memories, and look forward together to serve you well for the next 20 years. And I encourage you, if you'd like to be a part of one of these sabbatical teams, to reach out and let me know so that we can get you plugged in and celebrate these milestones together. Thank you for the opportunity for this Sabbath rest. I look forward to my time stepping aside and returning to you to serve you faithfully for years to come.
All right, for our nominations this year, we're actually electing a council to serve through July. Typically, you would elect a council to serve for a year, but as we switch to the fiscal year, we want our officers and our council to serve on terms that match the fiscal year. So, up for your consideration today, through July, myself, Bethany Wesley, President, Kim Williams, Vice President, Steve Palmer, Treasurer, Ashley Brew, at large, Mitch Eichman, at large, Greg Snyder, at large, Nicole Bieberdorf, at large, Larry Kent, at large. Of those council members, there would be 2 new people joining the council, Nicole, who's a charge nurse for cardiology, and Larry, who's an executive with the Boys and Girls Club. So that would be the council, the church council that represents Calvary. In addition to that, we have 1 new foundation member, Heidi Flattabo. The financial review team has agreed to serve another year, so that will remain unchanged. We do have openings yet for the 1-day virtual Synod Assembly, which would be held in May. So if you're interested in that, you can nominate yourself from the floor during the annual meeting or reach out to staff. Otherwise, if it's left unfilled, we'll take it back up at the council to find an appointment for that. So. All right, next up is we're going to talk about the bylaws. So this is a very small change, but basically you're going to hear this a little bit throughout this meeting today, that because we're changing from a calendar year system to a fiscal year system, we have to make some of these little changes to make sure that we can get our years to match our programmatic years. So there's a couple other benefits as well, such as having the annual meeting in the summertime. We'll probably make it so we can have a few more people attend and be a little bit more informed as to what's going on at the church. But basically the change that is proposed for the bylaws is the annual meeting of the congregations will be held prior to the start of the fiscal year. So that will change it from holding it right now in January to prior to the start of the fiscal year, which is proposed to start then in July, so we would hold it at the end of June. All right, next up is we're going to talk about a change to the Constitution. So the Constitution changes are really, it's a lot of wording changes. It's matching what was already done by the ELCA. Find the document online. You can read through the whole Constitution for the church. But the changes are really centered on the verbiage concerning rostered leader, word and service, and word and sacrament. So it's a lot of verbiage changes throughout that document. So if you could take a second to read through those, we'd appreciate that.
To the ministry budget. So going forward to our ministry budget proposal for the 7 months of 2021, we are proposing a 7-month budget to get us through this current programmatic year. Some of the income highlights for this budget: we have budgeted for technology upgrades for our annual project of preparing for more of a hybrid option for worship and faith formation after it's safe to gather in person again. Our income for this 7-month budget reflects the current trends that we've been seeing in our general fund offerings. And at this time, we are being consistent and conservative with staffing at the appropriate level to accommodate the revised income level. So awareness everywhere we not see an increase in the income being generated, We will be paying close attention to this as far as what decisions are made by the council and leadership for the level of staffing that our income is able to support at the time. Some of the expense highlights of note, we did add some health benefits to one of our year-round staff positions, which would be an increase of about $10,000 a year. We've also added some expense lines to replace the fund accounts that were in the previous budget, including the funeral, Women of Calvary, the Lutefisk dinner, and family assistance. These accounts will now be a use it or lose it basis so that the fund balances can more accurately reflect the money that we actually have in hand. Again, 1 month costs for the administrative assistant, tech person, the day custodian, and the third pastor, Nate, is all that we have in expense for this new budget and not going forward from there. Also, we have 2 payments that will be starting up in January for the 2 loans, existing loans that we took out last year. One last financial goal that we have set for ourselves is to increase our reserve funds from 1 month of reserves, which is $100,000, to 2 months reserves of $200,000. And we'll be working with the Mission Investment Fund to accomplish this goal in the next 2 to 3 years. Finally, a year-round programmatic budget from August 2021 to July 2022 will be proposed and voted on at our next annual meeting, sometime in June this year. This will be a look at our full picture of our preschool and general fund of our daily ministry income and expenses. Thank you.
Hi, this is Christy North, and I'm part of the Calvary Lutheran Columbarium Committee. There's about 7 of us on that committee. I'll just rattle off their names real quick. Paul Iverson, Kevin Cease, Cindy Luer, Gordy Lindgren, Garrett from the office, and Pastor Janelle. We've been meeting since this fall in regards to adding a columbarium space at the Calvary Cemetery over in Ninemore. And in case you don't know it, we do, as a church, own a cemetery over in Ninemore. It's right off on Roosevelt Avenue, and it's actually been there since the early 1900s. So if you have a chance to stop over there and look at that nice little country kind of feeling cemetery, it's right there. Right now, that cemetery has a couple different options for burial. One is the traditional one for casket or urns, cremation remains, that would be below ground. And it also has a mausoleum that would be use of a casket above ground. But there is no something that's called a columbarium. And that's what we're looking into. Over the last 20 years, there's been kind of an interest here in Bemidji to have a columbarium option in the community. Currently, there is not one, so we as a church would be the first to offer that as an option, and we would be the only one in the community. So that's something maybe to keep in mind. Columbarium, kind of an interesting word. There's a definition that's going to be thrown up on the screen for you to look at, but basically it's a freestanding unit that contains a niche or a number of niches. And a niche is kind of like a little cubby that you put cremation remains, an urn, and typically a niche or a columbarium space is 1 or 2 urns can be put into a niche. There also is something called a mausoleum, and currently our cemetery does have a mausoleum. How is that different than a columbarium? Mausoleum basically is someplace that's above ground, but you use a casket instead of burying the body below ground. There's also something else as people talk about columbariums and cremation that you might hear, and we've kind of as a committee looked at that might be down the road something we might want to add to the cemetery also, and that's an ossuary. An ossuary is actually a below ground chamber or vault where ashes are commingled with other individuals. So it's a large vault or below ground chamber, not an individual space. But each of these do have a place for you to put your beloved one's name and dates that you would like to include. Where would we put that columbarium? Over at the Calvary Cemetery? Well, if you ever have a chance to drive over there, you'll notice that there is a section of the cemetery that's undeveloped, and that would be in the northwest corner of the cemetery right off of Roosevelt. That's where we're kind of thinking that would be the best place to put it. And we are not looking at adding another entrance or exit to the cemetery. We feel the two that are there are sufficient. So that would be easy to get in and out of that space. Also, we're looking at a columbarium that has approximately 46 niches in it, actually 48. And if you put 2 individuals in a niche, then that provides 96 burial spaces. The cost for one of those is about $16,000. And then there's an additional cost to have a cement pad to put it on and to do landscaping. Well, where's that money going to come from? Well, we are very happy to let you know that we are not asking the Calvary congregation to help pay for that, but rather there is about $19,000 that have been set aside specifically to develop this at the cemetery through memorials and gifts. So we will we will look into using that money along with some other options. One of those options would do pre-sales of the columbarium niches and potentially doing a discounted rate for maybe the first 10 niches that we would be providing. We have also had an opportunity to talk with somebody about putting together a design for the layout of how that columbarium space would be used at the cemetery. And I think that Char was going to put up a couple different designs that we're looking at. Again, we know that there would be a need to add to that space. So basically, we're starting off looking at, we want to have enough money to start with to put one columbarium up and potentially add cement space for a second one for down the road. We hope to be able to offer this summer to individuals in our community. We also have been talking briefly with the local Vets Club regarding doing a Vets Memorial space over at the cemetery. And we'll continue going through that. They might be interested in proceeding, looking into the columbarium with us. So I guess that's just what I wanted to share with you. The committee is looking into the columbarium. If you have any questions or any thoughts, you can get a hold of one of the members of the committee or talk to Pastor Janelle or Garrett. It's a new opportunity for us to provide something in our community that doesn't exist, and we're so glad that we can be a part of that.